Hey folks, Nick here, and today we're taking a look at Eldritch Horror. This is the new epic Cthulhu world, Call of Cthulhu world type game from Fantasy Flight Games. This could be seen as a sort of sequel, pseudo-sequel, alternate telling of Arkham Horror by Richard Launius, but Richard Launius did not design this one. This is actually from Corey Konieczka and Nikki Valens, and Corey Konieczka, I really love some of the stuff he's done, especially with Mansions of Madness. Now, in this game, you are, much like in Arkham, you are all investigators in the early 20th century who are trying to stop one of the ancient evil gods from awakening and destroying the planet, or just generally causing havoc everywhere. But unlike in Arkham Horror, it is not confined to one city or its surrounding areas, but rather the entire world. You're going to be globe-trotting, trying to take care of encounters and monsters and nasty things, all in the service of putting to rest this evil god. How does it stack up to Arkham Horror? Is it as good? Is it better? Is it worse? Let's take a look. Alright, there's a lot going on in Eldritch Horror, and I can't go over every single little detail, but I can give you a general overview of the game. So, the goal of the game is that you're trying to keep an ancient evil god from awakening and destroying the earth. Or if that ancient god does awaken, to defeat it and put an end to it once and for all, although that is much more difficult. So, the first thing you do as a group is decide which of the Elder Gods you're going to face. And you have all the typical Call of Cthulhu gods: Azathoth, Cthulhu himself, Signuroth, Yog-Sothoth. And the choice of god is very important because each one has different game effects and different setup. You see you have different numbers here for the Doom track, which I'll get to in a moment. All of the cultist monsters in the game have different stats depending on which of these gods that you use. There's different game effects, different setup, how you set up the Mythos deck, which I'll also get to in a moment. And if the god ever awakens, then things change as well. Now for Azathoth, which is the god they recommend you start with, if he ever awakens, it's automatic game over. But for the other gods, you're still in the game, but it gets much more difficult, and you have a new losing condition to worry about. So, after you choose your god, you choose your adventurers, or I should say investigators. And these are all brand new ones, new to the world of Call of Cthulhu. Each player will choose one. You have Lily Chen, the martial artist; Diana Stanley, the redeemed cultist; Lola Hayes, the actress; Leo Anderson, the expedition leader, and so on and so forth. You have a lot of characters to choose from. Now, each of their cards breaks down in the same way. You have your health and sanity, which means at the beginning of the game, whatever that number is, you'll take a number of the different tokens equal to that. If you ever run out of health, you die a physical death. If you ever run out of sanity, you're going to go insane, and also effectively you're out of the game, similar to dying. Now, every character is going to be different in that they have two different actions. One of them is one you have to actually spend one of your actions on your turn to do, and you get 2 actions per turn. But it usually has a very beneficial effect. So, for instance, Lily Chen can spend any number of health or sanity, then recover an equal number of health or sanity. So she's good in that she's got a balanced amount of health and sanity, and if you find that you're getting close to either physical or mental death, you can pump some points from the other into one of those. So I guess thematically, the martial artist is very balanced in mind and body. Boy, I just thought of that. Anyways, also every investigator has an always-on power. So for Lily Chen, when you improve a skill, you may immediately improve that skill again. Well, what do they mean by skills? Well, at the bottom of every character card, you have 5 stats. You have lore, influence, observation, strength, and will. These will vary depending on character to character. As you can see, most of Lily's skills are quite balanced, but as a martial artist, she's very good at strength and will. Those are her 2 best stats. These numbers mean that these are the amount of dice that you roll when you are called to make a test based on one of those stats. So if something tells Lily to test her will, she will roll 2 dice. If something tells her to test her strength, she'll roll 4 dice. Now, you might have remembered that one of her abilities has to do with improvements. Now, in this game, you have these little improvement tokens that certain encounters will let you get, and they're all keyed to a different stat. When you get an improvement, you'll take it and put it next to that stat on your card. At first, you'll just get a +1, but if you ever improve that particular skill again, you can flip the token over to get up to a max of a +2, which basically just improves that skill, meaning you get that many more dice to roll. And how rolling dice works in this game, if you ever have to make a test, let's say that Lily had to test her strength. She'll roll as 4 for her strength, and anything that comes up as a 5 or 6 counts as successes. Most tests require that you just get 1 success, but there are other encounters that might require that you get more successes to have a more beneficial effect or to keep bad things from happening. Now, there is another side to every player's card as well. First off, for setup purposes, this will tell you where to put your little character standee, and of course, every character has a little standee that you'll use in the game. Trying to find Lily's. Here she is. So there's Lily's standee. So Lily starts in Shanghai, China, of course. So you'll put her over there in Shanghai, China. It also says what assets you start with. Assets are like equipment or protective spells. So Lily starts with Protective Amulet asset and the Lucky Rabbit's Foot asset. You'll look through the asset deck, which is this deck of cards right here. And that will give you whatever it is. You'll just grab it, put it next to your character sheet, and you'll have it. Then there's some interesting little blurb about your character's backstory if you're interested in the thematics of the game. Then over here, this is very interesting in that when your character either physically dies or goes insane, that would be physical is on the top, insanity is on the bottom, you put your character, lay your character standee down on the table, put all of your assets here, and then another character, including the new character you get to grab from the box even, may run into your old character's body, whether they're alive or whether they're dead or alive but insane, and then you actually have an encounter in which you get to make a test and possibly have something either good or bad. Now, when you choose an ancient god to fight, you also have to take all of the different cards associated with that ancient evil god. So the primary cards are these mystery cards, and in order to win the game, the investigators need to complete 3 of these mysteries. At the start of the game, you'll flip one of these at random over, and that is the first mystery you'll have to complete. So for Watching the Stars, it requires you to defeat an epic Cthulhu monster on a certain space of the board. When you can do that, you'll successfully complete this mystery, and you'll move on to the next one. Others might be more complicated and require you to complete certain specific encounters, and by doing so, putting Eldritch tokens, which are these little reminder tokens, on the card. When you meet a certain threshold, you can complete that mystery as well. When you get to 3 mysteries completed at the end and survive the round, you will win the game. Now, if you're not able to win 3 mysteries by the time the Doom track at the top of the board counts down to 0, the Ancient Evil One awakens, and in all but 1 cases, that means that you have to defeat the 4th mystery in order to win the game, and also the game gets much, much more difficult at that point. So each ancient god will tell you where to set the Doom track, and certain effects will make that go down, including by this little track up here called the Omen track up in the top corner of the board. The Omen track will also move around by certain card and encounter effects, and if the Omen track ever goes to a symbol that matches certain gates that are on the board, the Doom track will move down. Now let's talk about those gates. Now at the beginning of the game, depending on the number of players, you're going to take one of these little reference cards that will tell you how many of different types of things you should be putting out on the board depending on the number of players. So for instance, in a single player game, you would put, at the beginning of the game, you'll spawn a gate. Whenever there's a monster surge during the course of the game, you'll spawn 1 monster. And at the beginning of the game, and when certain effects kick off, you'll spawn a clue as well. When you spawn a gate, you're going to take one of these gate tokens, flip it over randomly off the top of the stack, and wherever it tells you to put it, you're going to put it. So this one goes in Shanghai, and you see it has this little red symbol here. Well, that matches one of the Omen symbols. So if that Omen gate, this little tracker here, ever moves to that red symbol while there's one of those red gates on the board, the Doom track will move down. And that's bad, because that means it is closer to the game ending and failure for the investigators. And there are all kinds of different spawn tokens that go to different places and have different symbols as well. And every time that you spawn a gate, you must also draw a monster. You'll have a random cup or bag of monsters. You'll pull one out at random and pull it out and put it in that location. Now, most monsters you're just going to put down on the board wherever the gate spawns. Some of them have a special green symbol which requires you to immediately flip over the token and read whatever the effect is. So, for the mummy, when this monster is spawned, you move it to the pyramid. So when she spawns, or it, you'll immediately put it in the pyramids out on the board. I should mention that the board is the entire world map and all the continents. Now, let's break down the monster token while we have it. If an investigator encounters a monster, and you must encounter any monster that's in an investigator's space, so let's say, for instance, Lily Chen moves to the pyramids. When it gets down to the encounter phase, she must encounter this monster before she has any other encounters. The first thing that Lily would have to do is test her will. Now, like I said, the first thing on every investigator's card, or one of the things on every investigator's card, is the willpower. So whatever Lily Chen's will is, she'll have to roll that many dice and hope that she gets a success. Now, for monsters, you actually might need more than one success. So, for instance, this monster's horror rating here is 2, so she needs to at least roll 2 successes to prevent herself from losing any sanity, because if she rolls less than 2 successes, she'll lose the difference in sanity markers. But no matter how that turns out, then she has to make a physical test. Now, for the mummy, it's a physical test -2. So if Lily Chen's strength is 4, she'll only roll 2 dice. So she'll roll those dice. She got 1 5, which counts as 1 success, but no other successes. But unfortunately, the monster's strength rating is a 2. So Lily is also going to take the difference here in physical damage, which means she'll take 1 damage. But the monster does have toughness as well and can take damage. So for as many successes as you rolled on the physical test, that monster's going to take that much damage. You'll put a little heart token on this monster, and it'll stay out on the board. But if anyone else, including Lily, has another encounter with it and can deal 2 more damage, it would die and go back to the cup or the bag. Before you ever even get to the part where you actually fight monsters and have encounters, you have an action phase. Every player is going to take their own action phase, one after the other in turn order. Whoever decides to get the first player marker, and the first player marker can change at the end of every round. The players will communally decide who gets the first player for the round. Sometimes it does actually matter. Now, when you have your action phase, you get 2 actions. You cannot double up on those actions. The first thing you can do is move to an adjacent space. Wherever you see a track, whether it's a sea route, a railroad track route, or just a yellow dotted line, which is supposed to be like an unexplored route, you're just going to move to an adjacent space. No problem there. Now, you can also prepare to travel. When you prepare to travel, you're going to take either a ship tickets or a railroad ticket. The ship tickets are the blue ones with the boat, obviously, and the railroad tickets have the red ones with the train. Now, in order to take one of these tickets, first thing, you have to be on a city space. The city space are particular little symbols on the map, and you can only take a ticket of the type of route that connects to that city. So if you're in Rome, you can take either of them because there are sea routes and railroad routes. But if you're in Istanbul, because it's landlocked, you can only take a railroad ticket, and you can only have 2 tickets at a time. But when you have a ticket in your possession, and you use one action to move, after your normal move, you may expend the appropriate type of ticket to get an extra move. So let's say that I have a sea ticket in my possession already, and I use my move to go from Istanbul to Rome. Rome has a sea route, so another sea route reading off of it, and I choose to spend my sea ticket, and I will go to London. Or I have the option of going to this unexplored space over here. If I had another ticket for a sea route, I could even go again and move again. So for a total of 3 spaces moved, all as part of the same move action. But it does take an action to prepare to travel and grab a ticket. Another thing you can do is try to acquire assets. Now, I mentioned that there is an asset deck, and all the players start with some assets. But if you want more during the course of the game, you're going to have to go to this little shop area down here. Now, you're going to have 4 of these out here randomly at the beginning, and whenever one gets purchased or removed for some other reason, you're going to replace it with a new card from the deck. So some of the examples are the 18 Derringer. It is a trinket weapon. You can add 1 to the result of 1 die when resolving a strength test during combat encounters. You have the Vatican Missionary, who is an ally. While you have him in your possession, so to speak, you gain +1 to your will. You may reroll 1 die when resolving a will test as well. Some of them are one-time use cards that will happen as soon as you get them. So if you buy the Agency Quarantine card, it's a service. When you gain this card, you can immediately choose a space. Each monster on the chosen space loses 4 health. Then you immediately discard this card. And, of course, the card that everyone wants, the double-barreled shotgun, which is basically a really, really killer weapon. Now, you notice that there is a number on each of these corners. These are the number of successes you need to acquire in order to get this weapon. When you choose to do the acquire assets action for one of your actions of the rounds, you will roll however many dice you have as the influence stat. So let's say you actually manage to get a 4 for influence. You'll roll that many, and however many successes you get is how many successes you can put towards getting one of these cards. So I only got 1 success, which means the only one of these cards I can afford is the 18 Derringer. Now, it's kind of hard to see. It's off the side of the board, but everyone has the option of this card that's imprinted on the board, which is a bank loan. Basically, you can choose to, it's 0 to acquire. If you acquire that, you're going to get an extra 2 successes for acquiring one of the items, but then you're going to have to take a debt condition, and those are generally really bad. The debt conditions are, there's a whole stack of condition cards that you might have to take, and the debt condition basically means that at a certain point, when a certain event is triggered, you're going to have to flip the card over, and they all do something different, even though there's several different debt cards, and then you'll have to pass a type of debt or challenge, or something really bad is going to happen to you. So you can take a debt and get a really awesome item, but it might come back to haunt you. Some of the other conditions are leg injury, detained, which means you're held in an area and can't do anything, curse, which means you only get successes on 6s, and I hate that one. Hallucinations and amnesia are different types of madness cards. There's one good condition called bless, which lets 4 5s and 6s count as successes. And even though there are several different copies of each card, they all have something different on the back whenever an effect tells you to flip it over. Now, another type of asset that you might have the opportunity to get are spells, and spells work the same way. If you have a spell, you can use its ability when it applies, but then you're going to have to flip it over and resolve a certain effect based on the number of successes that you have. And certain cards are also going to give you artifacts. Now, artifacts are really hard to get, and that's for a particular reason. That's because they're really, really powerful. So, for instance, the Divermus Mysterious is a tome item. As an action, you can test your lore. If you pass, you may spend 1 sanity to improve a skill of your choice. That is really, really awesome. And there's all kinds that let you automatically destroy monsters and improve your skills and just do really, really awesome stuff. So, but you can't get those from acquiring assets, but that is one of the actions you can take. Another action you can take is just to rest, which is to heal 1 sanity and 1 health. And another action you can take is to do any of your component actions or your character actions that are on your card. But once you get done with your 2 actions, you basically stay there until all the other players have taken their turn in their actions as well. Then it goes back around again, and each player has an encounter. Now, encounters are sort of the core of the game, and the encounter that you have depends not only on where you are, but actually what you choose to do. Now, I already went over combat, and if there's a monster in your space, you must have a combat encounter with each monster in your space, one after the other in the order of your choice. If all of the monsters are gone off your space, or there are never any monsters there to begin with, you can have an encounter of your choice. Now, if you're in a big area that has a picture on it, one of the main areas of the game, you have your option of either having an encounter from the sort of generic deck of encounter cards. You see they have a picture of the city, the wandering symbol, or the unexplored symbol, and the sea symbol. As long as your area matches that symbol, you can take a card from this deck. Then you'll flip the top card over, go to whatever applicable area applies. So if you're in a city, you'll read the city part, read it out loud. It will usually require you to pass a test. For instance, here this one requires you to have an observation test, so it has the observation symbol, and it will tell you what happens if you pass or fail. But alternatively, you may choose to have an encounter keyed specifically to the area that you're in. So, for instance, let's say that Lily was back in her hometown of Shanghai. She has the option when she has her encounter phase to pull one of the cards from the purple deck, and there's a deck of cards for each colored area. And these work in the same way. You'll flip the card over, go to the particular area and read it out loud, and you'll have to make a test. But it is worth noting that wherever you have the encounter, at the bottom of each area on the board, it will tell you what's most likely to happen. So, in Shanghai, it is most likely that if you successfully pass an encounter, you will have something to improve your lore. That's not always true, but it's most likely to be true. Now, you'll notice that Lily also had a gate in her area of Shanghai. She has the option of, instead of trying to have an encounter in the city or the area, she can try to close down this gate and have a gate encounter. When you have a gate encounter, you're going to draw from this otherworldly deck. When you flip a card over from the otherworldly deck, you're going to automatically read the part on the top, and you'll have a test. So the Abyss requires you to have an observation test because it has the observation symbol. If you pass, you'll read this sort of lighter colored part. If you fail, you'll read the darker colored part. Normally, if you pass, not only might something good happen to your character, but you'll get to close the gate. When you close the gate, you just remove it from the board. And that's always a good thing to do because it means that it's less likely monsters will spawn, and it's less likely that the Doom track will go down if the Omen track moves to a certain spot. Now, at the beginning of the game, and because of certain effects, you'll also spawn these clue tokens. And the clue tokens on the side of each one will tell you where to put it when you randomly spawn it. So this clue token will go on location 10. If there's a clue token in your space during the encounter phase, you can have a mystery encounter. Mystery encounters are keyed to the different ancient god that you choose, but it works the same way. You'll flip it over. Whatever particular area you're in, you'll read that paragraph and make a test of a certain type, and normally when you succeed on that test, you'll get the clue token. If not, if you don't succeed, something bad will happen to you and you don't get the clue token. If you get the clue token, you can use it for a couple of things. You can use it to re-roll any die that you just rolled by expending it, or a lot of different encounters, including most specifically the mystery encounters, or the mystery cards that you have to defeat, will require you to spend clue tokens in order to successfully put Eldritch tokens and complete the mysteries. And as I said before, if you run into a character's dead or insane body, you may have an encounter in that way as well. And there's all kinds of other different ones. Like I said, the whole core of the game is encounter, so some different cards will put out these little rumor tokens that you can have rumor encounters at. There's a wandering mystery encounter that whatever the top card of this, it's actually like a research encounter, wherever the top card of the deck, whatever picture it shows, you will move this token around, and wherever that token happens to be, you can choose to have that encounter and draw this top card off the deck, and it functions sort of like an otherworldly card where you'll read the top part and succeed or pass, and then read that applicable part, and so on and so forth. So the whole game is all about having encounters and hoping that those encounters will get you closer to solving the mysteries and completing the game. But unfortunately, after you finish your encounter phase, it is the Mythos phase. In the Mythos phase, whoever the first player will draw the top card off of the Mythos deck. You'll construct this ahead of time based on the stats and parameters of the god that you chose, and they're always something bad. Well, most of the time. When you draw one of the cards, the first thing that you're going to do is look at the top at all the symbology. Now, there's tons of different symbols in the game, and each one does something different. So, for instance, this first symbol here means that you're going to move the Omen track up in the top corner, which might cause more spaces to move down on the Doom track. This next symbol is the Reckoning symbol. Now, this is a particular symbol that will kick off certain card effects, whether it be from player cards or from different monsters that are out on the board. And then lastly, this one says to spawn a gate. And then you'll definitely you'll have an event at the bottom, which is the last thing you resolve. I happen to draw the one card in the Mythos deck that's actually good. Each investigator gets to basically gain a clue, gain an asset, or gain a spell. But usually they're bad. So, for instance, this one has the same symbols on the top, but each investigator loses 2 health and 2 sanity unless he discards a blessed condition. Let's see. Here's some different symbols. This one moves the Omen track, but also causes a monster surge, so more monsters come out of every gate that's on the board. Then you get to spawn a clue token. There's a different event there. Let's see. Here's one of the ones that puts out rumors. So you'll spawn a clue token, then put a rumor token on space 2. And put 4 Eldritch tokens on this card, and whatever the card tells you to do, basically it's something that's going to be hindering you and will stay out in play until you're able to solve this rumor encounter. And there's a lot of other stuff going on in the game, lots of different monsters that spawn, doing different things. There are epic monsters that are orange that you keep separate from the other monsters because they only come out when certain conditions are met for the different elder gods, and they're usually very, very difficult to defeat. But that's basically the game. You're going to be running around the map, using your actions to try and get in the best position possible to have an encounter and hope that the encounter gets you either stronger or lets you solve one of the mysteries, and hopefully you can solve those mysteries before the ancient evil one wakes up. It's inevitable that this game is going to be compared to 2 games. The obvious one is Arkham Horror, and the other, perhaps not so obvious one, is Tales of Arabian Nights. Now, as far as it compares to Arkham Horror, there's a lot of similarities. Obviously, you're taking control of all the investigators, although, unlike with their other Call of Cthulhu products, these are all brand new investigators, which is one thing I really like about this. But what's different about this game is that there is a lot less upkeep in Eldritch Horror as far as changing and resetting things and spawning monsters every turn. It's only slightly shorter. A lot of people have said that Eldritch Horror is faster than Arkham Horror, and yes, but you're talking about the difference between 3 to 4 hours for Eldritch Horror and 4 to 6 for Arkham Horror. It's still something you need to plan for. It's going to be the game that you play the night that you choose to play it. Other than that, I mean, the same feel, the same kind of tension and cooperative aspects and using clues and things like that. All of that is very similar. And as far as Tales of Arabian Nights, it is similar in the sense of having the encounter cards. You go to an area, you take your actions, you stop there, you're going to have an encounter. And there's all types of different encounters that you might have. There's definitely a lot more cards in this one. You have a lot more options as to what you encounter, but nevertheless, an encounter will happen whether you like it or not. You just have some options as to what happens with that. So in that way, it is similar to Tales of Arabian Nights. Now, aside from that, this game is unique. It is a game that stands on its own. It borrows the best elements from both of those games and throws out the bad elements. I really, really enjoy this game. And I want to be very clear on this. This is a fantastic game. There's no ambivalence here. It has its faults, and I'll get to those in a minute, but this game really knocked it out of the park for me. Now, I've defended Arkham Horror in the past because I felt that it was a very, very thematic game, and I really love cooperative games, and I thought that component quality and everything like that really, really knocked it out of the park for Arkham Horror, but it had some tremendous issues. Like I already mentioned, the upkeep issue, which to me, I mean, it just dragged the game down. Every round in Arkham Horror felt very, very slow. And like I said, Eldritch Horror and Arkham Horror are both long games, but when I was playing Eldritch Horror, I did not notice the length, because your turns are actually going by very, very quickly. You're taking your actions, and you only get 2 actions. There's not, you may say this is a knock against the game. There's not a ton of strategy. I mean, what you want to do can be fairly obvious, but how you do it, the encounters that you have, all the thematic elements of the game are what change and what you have the choices of. But that leads to your actual action turns going very quickly. Then you go to the encounter resolution, and that can go quickly as well. You basically just read off the card and test and do what it says. But it all works together very well. So to the fact that one of the games that we played went over 4 hours, and by the time we were about to be done, the other group of players playing next to us were packing up and leaving. And I'm like, what? You're leaving already? It's so early. And then I looked at my clock, and it was like midnight. I mean, but the time, it did not feel like that. It just went by very, very quickly, and I really enjoyed it. I really enjoy the entire encounter system for this, and this is how it's different than Tales of Arabian Nights, which is a game, if you saw my review, that I did not like at all. Because the encounters in that game, there was no rhyme or reason to them. You could be very, very skilled in something and choose to take an encounter that, by all rights, you should have had at least some indication that you would win, and it would just be some completely random nonsense that involves skills that you don't use, or just nothing happens, which is the worst part, when it's just totally boring and nothing happens to you at all. In this game, Eldritch Horror, something interesting always happens to you, and if you're doing a certain kind of encounter, you are going to know what to expect and what skills you should be good at. If you're trying to close an Otherworld gate, for the most part, you should be good at lore and observation. I mean, only a scant few of them seem to emphasize strength or influence. Or actually, no, influence was kind of a common one too, but you kind of know that going in. One of the games we played, I played the soldier, who had very low observation and very low influence and very low lore. And I was doing horribly on the Otherworld gates. I was like, why? Why did I ever decide to do this? But you kind of know that ahead of time. You also know when you're in all of the different major areas, it will give you a little indicator there of, if you do this kind of encounter, you are more likely to get this kind of buff, or this is more likely to happen to you. You're more likely to encounter a monster, to defeat a monster, to get a lore boost, to get a strength boost. That's all sort of made clear, and it works out very well. And the encounters themselves are awesome. Now, I will say that people complain that Arkham Horror kind of fell under its own weight of all the expansions it had, but I think expansions can really help Eldritch Horror, because I can see where the encounter cards can kind of get used up after a while. You're going to get tired of hearing the same ones over and over again, but that's fine. I mean, I would love to get more encounter cards for this. I would not begrudge them at all for releasing those kind of expansions. I really like the characters in this game. They're all very cool and thematic. I love that they use different ones, because I'm getting sick of seeing the same old investigators in all of the other Cthulhu games. So I really like that. They all had very different powers that worked very well. And knowing when to use those powers or use your gear cards is a very cool choice. I really love the way the acquire assets work. You always have the option to try it if you're in a city, but some people are better at it than others. You can choose to go into debt to get a better item, and if you might want to, if it's a really cool item. I did it in the last game that we played just because that shotgun was out there. It was just out there. No one was able to get it. Turn after turn after turn. Finally, I had 2 successes on my dice. I'm like, I'm getting that shotgun. I don't care what my debt does, okay? And it turned out okay, but that I love those kind of choices you can make, and it all feels very thematic. Now, the problems with the game, like I said, I mean, this is still a long game. There's just no getting around it. The people that say this is much shorter than Arkham Horror, it's so negligible that it doesn't really matter. This is an event. This is something you need to plan for. Some people are not going to like that. There are people in my game group who love the idea of the theme and would love playing it, but they're not going to sit there for that amount of time, and you need to prepare for that in your group as well. There's just not a lot of getting around it. I think if you're really experienced with the game, we've only played it 3 times, but if you're really experienced with the game, maybe you could shave it down to 2.5 to 3 if you're doing very, very well, but it's still going to be a long time. The dice rolling in this game, this is classic Ameritrash, okay? People who do not like dice rolls are going to hate this because those dice can screw you. It doesn't matter how good you are at something. I've saw plenty of people roll 4 to 7 dice and end up with bubkiss. No successes. It just happens. It's one of the things it's one of the challenges of the game. And it's frustrating. I mean, and I will say this too. Some of the conditions are way, way either overpowered in the benefit of the player or overpowered to the severe detriment of the player. I got stuck with the curse condition in 2 of the games I played, and it is the worst. Having to roll a 6 for a success is just crippling. You would not think so, but really. And getting rid of it is really difficult. And, I don't know how you could have changed that, but that's the kind of swingy stuff that's in this game. That's why people have complaints about Ameritrash games. And if you don't like that, this is not going to be the game that changes your mind on that. But if you do love theme, and if you can put up with those kind of dice rolls, this is the game for you. Like I said, I really love the encounters. They are probably going to need some more variety. I don't know when I'm going to... But the mechanics are sound enough in this game that even if you're reading the same encounters over and over again, and that will take a while before that happens, then it shouldn't be too big of a deal. It's a fun enough game mechanically as it is. The setup time is not nearly as bad as Arkham Horror, but it can still be an issue for some people. I don't know. I can't gush enough about this game. It's really, really great. I definitely don't regret the purchase at all. If you had any doubts as to whether or not this is just going to be a clone of Arkham Horror or that Arkham Horror is going to be better, in my opinion, this is not a clone, and it is much better than Arkham Horror or any of the other game that it's like the Tales of Arabian Nights that it pulled ideas from. Highly recommended. Check it out. My name is Nick. This has been Board Game Brawl, reminding you to get out there and game every day and in every way. Take care. Hey, sorry, time out, folks. I'm back. I forgot to mention the difficulty of this game. I think it's kind of important since it's a fully cooperative game that I talk about the difficulty a little bit. We played 3 games of this. One of them we lost horrifically. The other 2, it came down to the wire. We were actually more likely to run out of Mythos cards than it was to run out of the Doom track or to have the old one awaken. So I would say that overall it's a very difficult game. In that regard, it's much similar to Arkham Horror as well, but I don't think it's overwhelmingly difficult. When we lost or when we were in danger of losing, it just felt like, if we had done A, B, and C, we would be having a much easier time now. If I hadn't wasted my time trying to get these encounters done, which weren't really progressing our goal through the different mystery cards, then we'd be doing much better right now. So it doesn't feel all that swingy and random to me, although the dice could screw you up, and you really don't have a lot of control over that. Overall, though, I would say the difficulty is right where I want it as far as being tough, but not impossible, like frustratingly impossible. Okay, that's it. I'm out. Thanks.